Welcome back to another video. My name is Henrik and today we're going to be looking at one of the main competitors of the Volkswagen ID.3, the MG4. The Chinese ID.3 you can say, because it is a very similar car to the ID.3. This is actually very popular in Germany. It has sold 13,000 units last year, comparing to the ID.3 which sold 22,000 units. And for a Chinese manufacturer that is actually fairly high in Germany. Why that is? Well, let's find out in this video. So compared to the ID.3, this is actually 2,000 euros cheaper, starting at 35,000 euros. If you get the ID.3, it's going to be around 37,000 euros. We have it in the luxury version. You can get almost 5 different versions, not almost, it's 5 different versions. You can get the standard, you can get the comfort, the luxury, the trophy extended range, and also the X Power with the most amount of power, so 435 and 600 Newton meters. We have the luxury edition, and the test vehicle here is going to cost you around 42,000 euros and 640 euros. Because of the bright and blue color on here, which is going to cost you 650 euros extra. So still a fairly cheap car. You get 64 kilowatts of battery. If you get the normal one, going to be 54, just like in the ID.3 almost, with like 2 kilowatts difference. But in the front, let's start off with that. You get the big MG logo on the front. You get automatically high beam LED lights in here. Those are not going to be matrix LED, but they will blend out oncoming traffic, so just turn the high beams off. Down here we have our blinker with fake aerodynamic touches in here, and also this kind of like fake carbon touch down here. Doesn't look too bad. Fake touches on the side here, but active aero down here, and a little bit of a front lip spoiler. Otherwise, you also have a camera in here. With the luxury edition, you also get 360-degree cameras, and the bright and blue color on here, in my opinion, does look fairly nice. Under the hood, you do not get a frunk, but let's talk about the engine. Obviously, it's going to be rear-wheel drive, so it's not going to be in the front, but you do get 204 horsepower and also 250 Newton meters with a max speed of 160. I've personally been able to get 171, so a little bit faster. Still fairly decent, 0 to 100 in 7.9 seconds. If you obviously want a little bit more power, you can get 435 and 600 Newton meters from the X Power. That's going to get you from 0 to 100, I think, in 3.9 seconds, so fairly quick. And the battery in here is also a 64 kilowatts an hour battery. The normal one gets a 54. The extended trophy range also gets 77 kilowatts an hour. And we're going to look at all the charging stats in a second. But if you want a complete like consumption test and stuff like that, Autobahn test video on the top right corner right there, you can check that out. The car is going to be 5 meters and 29 long, 1 meter and 52 high, and also 2 meters and 6 centimeters wide with the side mirrors. These also have blind spot assistant and are automatically foldable. In the front and in the rear, we get 18-inch rims with plastic caps on here, so you can take those off. Bridgestone T005 EV tires on there. Fairly big black side skirt on here, again out of plastic. You do have keyless entry in the front, and you have to press this button to unlock and, well, lock it. That's the only way you can do it. Blacked out rear windows, and we also have our charging port in here where we can charge at a max speed of 140 kilowatts. Battery, like I already mentioned, 64 kilowatts an hour, and the net usage is going to be 61.7. The battery in here is actually also, when the press release came out in 2022, it said the slimmest battery of only 11 centimeters of height, and that's going to take you around 26 minutes to charge it from 10 to 80%. If you do want a little bit of a bigger battery, you can get the extended trophy range battery with 77 kilowatts an hour, and that's going to take you, well, a total of 36 minutes because it only has a 144 kilowatts charging speed, which is only 4 kilowatts faster than this one. WLTP claims 435 kilometers combined, and in the city 577 kilometers. And we've always been able to reach that speed, so the max we have been able to get was 140 or 139.9 if you want to be exact. And the car also does offer vehicle to load, so you can charge your e-bikes or anything other that you want to charge while you're in the middle of nowhere. Fairly big light bar on the back here with lights on the top, which looks pretty cool at night. Close up of that in there. Light bar all the way through, which is just interrupted by the MG logo in here. A little bit of a roof spoiler in there with also some brake lights in there as well. Down here also a little bit of a diffuser, which goes fairly high up, especially when you look from lower down. You can theoretically tow 500 kilograms. We do not have a towing bar on here, so we can't do that right now. Manual trunk with 350 liter of storage space up to 1,165 liters. And down here you also have a little bit more storage space where, for instance, your 2 charging cables are going to be at. Do you notice that the battery is only 11 centimeters of height? Not really. I mean, my leg is not completely on the bench in the back, but still fairly comfortable to sit in. A little bit of foot room. If you have bigger feet, then you're not going to have too much space. 1.80 or 5'11", the seat is adjusted to me, and I have good amount of leg room. 2 pockets up here, which are fairly comfortable to touch, and you also have a little bit bigger pocket down there, but in general seating quality is fairly nice and feels fairly comfortable. You might wonder, why is the headrest in the center? Well, the center headrest I needed to take out because you really can't look out the back otherwise, because the window is so small and it's just going to block rear traffic. You also have USB in here and a little bit of storage space down there, but it's really far forward, so you have to really reach down. A little bit of a tunnel in the center as well, so a little bit of a hump. Quality on the side is not the greatest. You just have hard plastic there, apart from the armrest. That, however, is going to be on a good material, so where you have your arm resting, it's just good quality in general. Apart from the roof, if you have wind, if you have rain or stuff like that touching the roof, then it's gonna get noisy in here fairly quickly, because this is also fairly, well, cheap. So join me in the interior of the MG4. You can see it is a fairly minimalistic interior with a little bit of a digital cockpit there, infotainment display, which is supposed to have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wirelessly from a press release of 2022, but when you press on, it says connect mobile phone to USB. So you're gonna have to use USB to connect it to use Apple CarPlay, but I have Bluetooth media enabled. You also have inductive loading down here. Your gear shifter, you don't have a start-stop button, so you just have this, and your parking brake down there with a little bit of piano black, and also the MG4 electric down here. One thing that's actually pretty, well, interesting, if you use the air conditioning, put it to auto, it's always going to be on full blast. I don't know why, so it's always insanely loud, so I always have to turn it down to automatically. But if you put any temperature on here, even if I put like 27, I'm not too sure if this is going to put auto now as well on full. Okay, it's a little bit quieter, but still, I've had this on for like 22 minutes, or like 20 minutes, and it always is on the highest settings. It doesn't go down. I don't know why, but it's just, auto is always on the highest if you put it like on a lower level. Sound is also fairly decent here when it comes to sound quality, but let's drive it, because that's the most important thing about this car. Like you mentioned, the ID.3 has a little bit of bigger side pillar on the A-pillar there, so it's a little bit harder to see out, especially when you're driving on the, well, if you're turning and you want to see, when you want to see out. In here, I don't think that is a problem, apart from the rear window. That rear window is just fairly tiny, and you can see we did take out the headrest, because otherwise you really can't see out of here. The suspension here is fairly nice, and it, even at 170 when I did my Autobahn test, felt fairly comfortable. You don't really feel like the car is moving around too much, and it doesn't feel like you're not safe in here. You have quite a lot of safety features in here. With the luxury edition, you get blind spot assistance, adaptive cruise control, traffic jam assistance, rear collision warner, 360-degree camera. The 360-degree camera is actually not the greatest quality. We'll check that out here in 1 second. But otherwise, assistant features, you really can't complain about them too much, apart from the adaptive cruise control. That lane keeping assistant isn't the greatest when it comes to keeping itself in the lane, especially when it's a little bit of a harder turn. It just likes to go into the other lane. Let's quickly take a look at that 360-degree camera. Here is the front camera. You can see also if I blink, it's gonna have the well, our side mirrors on there, or side view, which is really nice. I like to see that. There's a 360-degree camera. If I put it into reverse, you can see that quality just isn't the greatest, and it doesn't have the highest amount of FPS, but it does show you trajectory lines, and otherwise looks pretty decent, well, for what you need. Blinker noise, I gotta say, really doesn't sound great. I hate that sound. And oh, look, that is one thing. Also, if you look back here for a second, the C-pillar is really thick, so I can't really see if there's anything coming. So Lars, you gotta say, is there something coming?
Yeah.
Okay. Good, I wouldn't have seen it. So you do have 204 horsepower with 250 Newton meters, and when I was driving on the Autobahn, that is plenty of enough. If I hear I'm in normal mode right now, kick it, it has a good punch. 0 to 100 in 7.9 seconds. Can't really complain about that. 204 horsepower for an electric car is completely doable, especially if you use this car in the city. WLTP claims 16.6 kilowatts with this car, or kilowatts an hour. And if we look at it, I think we have that exact value over the... Okay, now it went up to 16.7. So this car is totally doable on that WLTP claimed range. That has been a combined of Autobahn and also city driving. So 16.7, almost exactly what WLTP claims. With that, you should be getting around 400-ish kilometers, 450, something right around there. Currently it's saying 67% at 233 kilometers. If you drive on the Autobahn around 80 behind a truck, you're gonna get somewhere around 600 kilometers, but I think 400, 450 for the city is exactly what WLTP claims as well, 435. And in the city only 577, I think that is fairly doable. Like I said, the traffic when the lane keeping assist is a little bit irritating, especially when you're driving on the Autobahn and there's a traffic work construction going on and you have orange and white lines. It usually only detects the white lines, but you're supposed to keep to the orange lines, and then it just gives you beeping noise, and it always tries to adjust it, so not the greatest. Sound deadening here at 80 is fairly decent. At 170, definitely very loud, and you gotta speak up quite a lot. Well, not very loud, but it's just a little bit louder. But otherwise, this car is fairly comfortable to drive. The only thing that I will have to say about the seating position is that your foot is on the left side. There's the pillar that stands out where you usually have your foot rested on, is fairly close to you. It's more made for, I'd say, well, smaller people, maybe Asian people. They're tendency to be smaller. But I'm already sitting basically behind the B-pillar with my seat, and I still feel like I'm too close for my foot to be comfortable, but then also almost too far away for my feet to be in a good position. Like, the position I'm in right now is perfect, apart from just the comfort of my left foot, which could have been changed a little bit. Steering wheel is also fairly nice in your hand. You don't have any like pillar down here, and the controls are also easily adjustable. So this is for your song skip, volume, stuff like that. And you can also change the recuperation in here if you use the star button on the left. That's going to change the recuperation. You can see on the digital cockpit on the bottom right, there is 1, so the smallest recuperation, 2, 3, and then also an auto. That, however, resets every time I get into a car. And auto is the adaptive regeneration, which I think is the most comfortable. 3, in my opinion, is just a little bit too strong. And you also don't have complete one-pedal drive. But if you're using this car in town with 4.29 meters, I found it very comfortable, especially with the turning radius of 10.6 meters. And also the lightweight of this car, well, for an EV, theoretically is a lightweight. 1,675 kilograms is not too much. And you don't feel like you're driving a heavy car, especially when driving in the city. This car is perfect for the city, in my opinion. The turning radius is so gentle and so nice that it is just very maneuverable in the city. You're not going to have any issues trying to find a parking spot, and especially with the 360-degree camera and also the side camera, basically very helpful to not scratch your rims or anything like that, even though you have plastic rims, so they're not going to cost you much when trying to replace them. And yeah, suspension is also fairly decent. You have a couple of different modes that you can put into this car as well. If we go down, actually, is this button adjusted to my drive modes? It is. So sport, custom, snow, you also have an eco mode and in the normal one. A couple of different modes if you want to use them and play around with them. I gotta sneeze. I don't.
At you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you. Oha! The English god! You do not have a heads-up display, but you don't really need it in this car as well. You have everything in here, which is already fairly high up, so you can notice them all the time. In general, it is just very comfortable driving the city. If you want to use it over a long journey as well, like I said, review on the top right corner of the consumption test on the Autobahn, it was fairly comfortable driving on it as well. There's really not much you can complain about this car when using it as a daily driver in the city, because it is very well optimized for that. So what is my final verdict on the MG4? My colleague, for instance, Lars, drives an ID.3 personally, and I gotta say the quality in there is a little bit nicer, but however, you're still spending 2,000 euros less on this car, and you get 2 kilowatts an hour more for the battery size. Price-wise, we'll have to see in Germany, at least in the future. Maybe there is going to be, well, import taxes, which are going to be looking at around 36% for this car. So that's 15,000 euros on the way it stands here. If all of those are going to happen, we don't currently know. Maybe we'll know a little bit more in the future. But in general, it's a fairly decent car. It's very nice and compact, especially for the city. The consumption is also great. And really, in my opinion, a fairly decent car. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.